Hello, Christy.
Hey there.
Good evening, one and all.
Good evening.
Oh. Oh,
Okay, hello folks.
Well, that's
We'll get started here in a little bit, but
fine.
we're just having some problems with our system here.
Peter,
Peter, can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of had that, you go back in that kind of.
Brandon?
Read you loud and clear, Chad.
Okay, so I think that moving forward, we're just not going to be able to see you, but you can see us.
Which one's it?
I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I think it's as good as we're gonna get.
Okay. Well, we're after 7. If they can't hear us.
They can hear us.
We can hear you.
Right, yeah.
I
Can
would
hear you
say-
just fine, Madam Mayor.
And can you see us?
Yes, we can see you.
So if you lose the connection, would you text me
Or, yeah.
or Chad? Just-
Okay,
So we know that you're not there.
all righty.
All right, we're gonna call the May 4th City Council meeting to order. Is there a declaration of conflict of interest by any of the council?
No.
No,
No conflict.
No.
okay. And approval of minutes. First set is April 6th, regular meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes of the city council meeting of April 6th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Not hearing any, then special meeting minutes, April 19th.
I have one correction on page 2. Fourth dot down, fourth line from it. And it goes, format can be removed through the document. I think it's throughout. This specific underlined
Yes.
format can be removed throughout the document, but I believe it's supposed to be. I move we accept with corrections.
Second.
Any
I'll
further-
second that.
That was a third, Brent.
Oh,
Thank
it
you.
was. Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we will move on. Unanimously approved. Planning Commission report is in your packet. Looks like there was a partition application and a setback variance granted. Mayor's report. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the visitors section. Remind visitors to state their name and address. They can email Chad Sweet if they'd like to speak, or Christy may be able to see the hands up function. Do we know?
Yes, she should be able to see that.
Okay.
Yep. I can see it.
Okay, good. And I would just ask that we not have dialogue during visitors section, but that Justine and Christy can take down any questions or anything that needs feedback. And we can, if we are able to assign someone to get back to them at the time, that would be great. Otherwise, Chad can get back to us with who needs to send a response via email. I just want people to have a chance to use their 5 minutes and let us know what's on their minds, but I don't want to get into a lot of dialogue at that time.
All right, make sure you don't.
And The other items I have, I did attend a women's League of Oregon Cities Women's Caucus last Saturday. I've been working with Gear Pack 2022 quite a bit on the fire station bond, police and fire station bond. I've had several mayor's coffees that have gone quite well. And I did an interview with Coin News that is also about the fire station bond. It has not aired yet, but I did hear today that it should air in the next day or two. We'll start councilors report. That's all I have for tonight. Council reports, Austin. Carrie Smith.
Nothing.
Rita.
Well, Chad invited me to a meeting with one of the members of the, was it the Tatum Mechanic Watershed Council? Yeah, and he talked about the plans that they have for the upgrading of the trail, and I really learned a lot. He talked a lot about getting rid of the invasive vegetation and of replanting native plants along there to improve the whole ridge path. And the process, you said, should take about 2 years, is that right, Chad?
Yeah.
It's a 2-year plan. It's really informative, so I enjoyed that.
Is that mostly in the North Ridge path area?
That's what he talked about, maybe, but I think he's gonna do the whole ridge path, but he talked mostly about the North Ridge path.
Great, anything else?
Unless you wanna add anything, Chad?
Yeah, he's gonna come in on Friday the 6th, and he's gonna canvass the whole ridge path to help kind of put some of his ideas together, and we're gonna help him out with that.
Oh, good, and he also talked about meeting with the owners of property along the ridge path to make it so that they're not caught unawares of what's happening and what they would like to see done, so it was really a good meeting.
And Brent? Council report?
How do I get a picture? Is it?
Councilor Warren?
I'll just listen for a minute.
Brent, you're muted. And
Oh.
callers, need you to mute your phones, please.
Okay, I will try it one more time. And hopefully there's one phone that's still not muted. I can see on my screen. Ends with 316. Anyhow, I attended Mayor's Coffee and the fire station open house, had a great time, met with a lot of people, exchanged a lot of good information. I have been working on putting together a plan for a capital campaign. We've discussed it a couple of times at our meetings before, but we're moving closer to that point where we need to kick that off, and we'll need to decide who the fiscal agent will be for that capital campaign, whether that's the city or the Gerhardt Volunteer Firefighters Association.
Oh, yeah.
Or a combination of the two. Also worked on some suggestions for tweaking our budget process. And that's about it.
Thank you, Brent. And city officer reports, chief of police. I know Chief Bowman was around. We have.
I'm here, I'm bringing up my video.
Okay, go ahead, you've got the floor. We've got your report in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. There isn't a whole lot to really report in my monthly report. It was actually a very, I think, mundane crime month. The one Berg 2 that you're looking at, it was down at CK Community Center, which is down in the Lowenbergs buildings right across from Dairy Queen. it appears that they didn't actually break in. I believe they used a bump key to get in through the back door. They actually made a makeshift bed there, slept behind a desk, and then after they left, they grabbed 3 debit cards that were no longer good. There was no cameras inside the building or anything, so there isn't a whole lot that's going to be followed up with that. They are going to be installing some cameras and maybe keep a better tab on the place with the client, with some of the clientele that they work with. Disturbances weren't all that many really. But last week is kind of interesting. I had a woman that dropped in to see me. She was concerned about encounters that she's had with one of her neighbors. And she actually wanted to inquire whether or not maybe these encounters were of a criminal nature or not. So she explained these verbal conversations that she's had with this individual. I asked her a few questions, and it actually turned out to she didn't have really any type of harassment or intimidation or anything else that took place against her. It was all under the disguise of freedom of speech type activity. So I thought we were done with the conversation, and she made a comment that Gerhardt has an evil streak through it. And I went, well, what do you mean by an evil streak? And she said, well, the people that live here, I've lived in small towns my whole life, and the people here are just evil. And I went, well, crime-wise, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of crime. We're not, you know, we don't have a lot of victim crimes. We don't have any robberies, muggings, carjackings, or anything like that. And she said, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about how mean people are. So I explained to her that really the citizens of Gerhardt, they aren't evil. That we have individuals that live in Gerhardt that I think they feel or they believe that they live inside the walls of Camelot. They live in crystal palaces, and they get to throw verbal stones around. And that's okay until someone else starts throwing verbal stones back at them under the disguise of freedom of speech. And then the next thing you know is it's all over the social media. Their followers, of course, are posting teardrop and sad faces, emojis. The social media lawyers start coming out on their side, which before the internet, they were actually called jailhouse lawyers. Start telling them about all the crimes that had been committed against them, like harassment, intimidation, stalking, etc. And none of it's really valid. But people that are coming new to here, that join these groups, especially when they say friends, they really get disenchanted, and it really disturbs some of the people, not all the people, but some of the people when they show up. So I went on to explain to her that actually they aren't criminals. In essence, they just don't like to be told that they're wrong or be told that they're doing something wrong. And in fact, I had that encounter today with an individual. So I explained to her that right now we have 1,550 people inside the city limits of Gerhardt. I believe that that's going to go up to over 1,800 here pretty soon with whatever count last came out. But if you think about 1,500 people, one person's opinion, that's only worth 1/15 of 1%. So if you have 15 of these individuals, then it's 1% of the population that are disenchanted or spewing whatever they want. And even if you had 150 of them all together, That's still only 10% of the population. So that's 90% of the population of Gearhart that is still kind of minding their own business and going about life like the rest of us are doing. And I told her, actually, you know, if you have any really serious problems, come and see me. You're welcome to come in anytime you want. I am here to help you. And she actually thanked me. And I think that when she left here, she actually felt better. And this seems to be more of the call that we're getting. And these type of calls, that goes under the column on my report where it says disturbances. Disturbances mean that there was a criminal act or anything else. It just means that actually something happened. It disturbed somebody and they gave us a call. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be the person in Dollar General parking lot screaming and yelling and talking to himself. It goes down as a disturbance. So with that in mind, anybody's welcome to come see me. I don't wear my feelings on my sleeve, and you aren't going to hurt my feelings, even if you do post about them or my body cam, throw it up on Facebook like it's on there tonight. All right. That's all I have, Madam Mayor, unless the council has any questions of me.
Chief, I had a question about the recruitment process for the open position.
Well, we're doing a background on an individual right now, and that's pretty much all I can say is until the background's complete, he did get his certificate of naturalization yesterday. So he's a US citizen now, because that's one of the requirements to be a law enforcement officer in the state of Oregon. Some states don't require it, but Oregon does. So we got that certificate today. He passed yesterday, or was accepted yesterday as a US citizen. And we're going from there. The interviews, instead of sending Sergeant Brown off to where he lives, because he lives down in California, the interviews background that we're doing, it's all going to be with Zoom.
Okay. And this
there isn't a whole lot more to go forward with it than that right now.
Okay. This is a different candidate than the last time.
So the last candidate, you know, we offered him a conditional offer.
Right.
And he turned us down, and he said that he really didn't want to work on the coast anyways, that all he wanted to put is on his resume that a police department or a city actually had offered him a job. And it was a week later that I got a call from Washington County Sheriff's background investigator wanting to know if in fact we did offer him a job.
Okay. Yeah. Hadn't heard what the status of that candidate was. So thanks for the update.
Okay.
Any other questions for the chief? And so next is fire chief report, and I think I heard that Chief Como's on vacation this week.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. I'm subbing in for this afternoon.
Welcome.
This evening. So Chief Como is out. He's out till probably at the end of next week. He'll be back on Monday. He's currently at a conference. But I will report as follows. For the month of April, we ended on call number 220. That was 70 calls for the month. In comparison to 2021, that was a record year. The month of April in 21, we ended with 183 calls. So we're essentially 37 calls ahead of last year at this time. For the breakdown of the 70 calls of last month, 34 of them were within the city limits of Gearhart, and 26 of them were out into the district. 10 of those calls were for mutual or automatic aid to other agencies. 8 of them were to Seaside. 1 was for a structure fire, 2 were for coverage of their station. 1 was for a gas leak during some low staffing. They needed a little bit of assistance, so we went that way. And then 4 of them were for medical calls during higher call volumes over their direction. We had 2 of them that were also in Warrenton. One was more recently was for a motor vehicle accident out towards Highway 101 and Sunset Beach Lane. An individual, the sole occupant of the vehicle, had a medical emergency. He hit a power pole, sheared it in half, and proceeded another quarter mile down the road where he ended on the opposite side of the highway. A crew of ours working alongside Warrenton, we established patient care inside the vehicle and took care of them. And then we had to cut them out of the vehicle. So we took the entire top of that car off in mere minutes and got them off to the hospital. Another call that we went to Warrenton for was for another medical call during some higher call volume in their direction. What isn't in this report that was deemed to be notable is we just recently also had a structure fire that we responded to in Warrenton. It was a second alarm fire that it was a double wide modular home that had been fully involved. And so Gearhart was asked to send 2 engines that direction. And amongst some North County resources, even the Oregon Military Department out of Camp Riley, and we were able to respond and assist and help control and put out that fire. Over the month of April, though, we also did not receive any. A couple more notes is regarding to community events. This last month's open house went really well. We had quite a few individuals, new faces, and some frequent flyers kind of come through. And we were able to give station tours and answer some questions. Suzanne Weber, a candidate currently running for state senate, was able to come by and visit with us, and it was good to get her thoughts on the process. And also review we had during the Easter Sunday weekend, we had the egg hunt. It was very well attended, and we were very happy about it. The Volunteer Firefighter Association hopes to bring this back year after year. It was really fun to see how we had 800, 900 some eggs, and they were gone in mere minutes. Bunches of little good seconds. It was, yeah, practically. It was awesome. For training within the department, we just recently finished our annual required logging training. The goal is to kind of bolster and prepare ourselves for the next upcoming fire season. Most of the state of Oregon is in a state of drought right now. And so not only do we want to be prepared for if we have a fire here in the dunes or somewhere else, we want to be prepared to offer services and be available if the call is made. Chief Como has mentioned in his previous reports about dispatch and radio communications and working on getting additional repeaters into the area. The equipment is still up in Longview at this time, and the FCC licensing is kind of pending. We should know within the next couple of weeks, kind of an update as to that process and what's progress has been made. 2 grants that are out, an AFG grant to replace our aging tender out at our substation. It's still pending. We haven't heard anything on it. No news is good news in a sense. And then there's still a safer grant out there for a recruitment and retention into the person to help build a program revolving around recruiting and retaining firefighters. That would be the end of my report, Madam Mayor, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Just one quick question, the first grant you mentioned, that the acronym is AFG?
AFG, it's an Assistance to Firefighters grant offered by FEMA.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very.
I kind of have one.
Yes.
Well, it's hard for me to imagine the word drought and then in combination with April being the rainiest month ever. Is the drought mostly in Eastern Oregon or is it in Western Oregon as well?
I believe we're looking a lot towards Central and Eastern
Okay.
Oregon.
That makes more
The
sense.
State Fire Marshal's office is quite concerned as to regards to 1, resources and 2, staffing. And so they've gone through extra steps recently in the last year or more in regards to, we used to wait until we actually had a fire to do a state of emergency and a confirmation and send resources to an incident. And one of the state fire marshal's ways of being proactive on that part is they're doing pre-positional move ups. They'll say, we're gonna have extreme weather in this area this time of the year. So they'll put together a team and they'll send them there. And not only, they're not there just to be there in case the fire erupts. They're able to triage the area in the event that, and a fire does come through, they can strategize, they can make contact with homeowners. And during that period of time, which is typically up to a week, it benefits them for having an area familiarity. In the event that, say, they come home and, you know, a fire does erupt a couple days down the line, they can send that original crew back out and they already have a home field advantage as to what's going on.
Do you know if any Oregon firefighters went down to northern New Mexico to that fire?
The Oregon Department of Forestry sent some crews down that direction, but no resources from the State Fire Marshal's office.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions? Okay, Justine.
So let's see, noteworthy this month. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. In revenues, we received the Gerhart Rural Fire District in account 100018. That's their annual contractual agreement payment of $224,000. There was quarterly taxes submitted for marijuana tax and transient room tax, both of them very strong and healthy this quarter, as well as renewals for the annual short-term rental permits. So they have to renew once a year, and this happened to be, April was a month where we had quite a few come in, so there was quite an increase in revenue there. In expenditures, there's been a transfer from the parks personnel. So in account 101801, which is public works labor, it's in the parks department for expenditures, and I have moved that to the water in 33003 part-time help. And this was an adjustment because the work was specifically water expenditure related. It was maintenance for fire hydrants, so it shouldn't have been in public works parks. It was more appropriately should have been in water. So I did move that this last month. There was also a public works expenditure in fund 7878 in account 787899, which is the public works equipment capital outlay for the purchase of the new public works vehicle, which the council approved in June of 2021 for public works to move forward. He had it on order, it just came last week. So it took just about almost a full year for him to get it. All the budget committee members, applicants were invited to a 30-minute voluntary meeting on Monday. The purpose of this meeting was to go over the meeting process, just kind of some basic terminology and the format of a city's budget. We ended up going over a little bit, the 30 minutes, but I was really thankful that people came and were interested, and we had great attendance. Everybody was really interested, I felt like, in learning and seeing how our budget is put together. And we have had some feedback on the budget calendar for next year, and we do hope to improve it so that the budget committees have a little bit longer to maybe digest and process what that document is and entails. And that's my report.
Any questions of Justine? Mr. Watts, do you have a report for us?
I do. I was in court earlier this month for oral argument on the Shannon Smith case, which you may recall. Very unique circumstances there, and that the mortgage lien holder only recorded the mortgage on one half of the property. And they've been, for the last, I guess it's been more than 2 years, trying to foreclose without facts in my mind that could justify that foreclosure. Her attorney filed for summary judgment, and that was what the oral argument was on. I absolutely believe that was an appropriate filing given the nature of the facts in that case. And the judge indicated that he was granting that motion. I have been asking the lien holder for months to come to the table to see if something could be negotiated to resolve this. They had refiled this case or amended their complaint 4 times or tried to 4 times. And thus far, they've been completely unwilling to tell us what they want or negotiate. They just make these sweeping kind of general statements about why would anyone record a lien on one half of the property? It's like, I don't know, you tell us. So that's been exciting, but hopefully we'll come to an end and hopefully we can resolve that. I was on the phone call with Scott Friganese and DLCD staff last week regarding the land swap. Interestingly enough, someone pretending to be a reporter called DLCD staff about the land swap and was talking about, I guess, how they believe that people are quite against it. And when they were describing who the reporter was, it didn't sound like it was RJ, and so, or a reporter, frankly. So I gave him some background on what's been going on the ground. I received emails today from an attorney concerned about the land swap and what its impact could be on our buildable lands inventory housing needs analysis. And what I told that lawyer is that Portland State's projected growth for Gerhardt from 2010 to 2020, and those were the numbers used in the housing needs analysis and buildable lands inventory, was 5.6% population growth. Our actual population growth over that period was 22.6%. So it was more than 4 times what they predicted. Seaside's was almost 7 times more than they predicted. Warrenton's was over 3 times what they predicted. And Astoria was about 4 times what they predicted. The only city that was below what they predicted was Cannon Beach, and I think that's due to vacation rentals. So although we have a current BLI and HNA, Buildable Lands Inventory Housing Needs Analysis, that does not show a need for any rezones or any urban growth boundary expansions, if you look at the numbers for the past 10 years and the past 20, because they do both a 10-year look back and a 20-year look back, and then look at the numbers that they projected going forward. The numbers they projected going forward are a small fraction of the growth that we've had over the last 10 years. And so I would expect them to revisit those numbers. And again, it's not just us, we are not an outlier. It is every city in the county being dramatically more population growth than they expected, with the exception of Cannon Beach. So I think we're going to see a lot more flexibility in both those documents. So I cannot promise that, I can't guarantee it, but I can look at the statistics and look at the projections and wow, they were off by a lot. The other impact of them being off by that much is that we receive shared funds, state shared funds, based on PSU's population estimates. So we have been getting shorted by a substantial amount over the past, every year we likely got shorted by more because every year the gap between the actual and what they estimated would have grown. So, I've been pretty vocal about this. I heard from Senator Armitage, because I don't think it's fair. Senator Armitage and I are going to be meeting later this month to go over all the numbers, to talk about the housing situation here in Clatsop County, as well as the shared funds, and how are we going to make sure that we are treated fairly and that the numbers are accurate going forward. And I'm sure we'll have some other conversations too, but I thought that was kind of a good sign. So I just wanted to throw that out there because anytime I get a call from a lawyer about the BLI and the housing needs analysis, I just want to make sure that people have as accurate information as possible, because I do think that those are problems. And that absolutely is impacting our workforce housing in this county. That's my opinion. But I think the statistics definitely bear that out. Speaking of the land swap itself, it would be no net new acres inside our UGB. The impact, because the original proposal that we had was for a 21 lot subdivision that would be served by city water. The reason we would want that to happen, the reason we sent them a letter saying that is what they could expect and what would happen, is because it connects two of our water lines and adds redundancy in the system. That decision was made in, I want to say either 2019 or 2020, long before we ever thought this sort of land swap would be possible. Practically speaking, because of density, some density bonuses that they had, the lots in that original subdivision before we ever contemplated a land swap were 20,000 square foot lots. What would happen under our R1 zoning is 10,000 square foot lots. It's not double the lots because of the topography of the site and because we are getting a free site, free as in we are not paying for it, for the firehouse, and a free site in that we are not paying for it for a park. And just because again, I had the lawyer asking about why this site. The High Point site asking price was $3 million. We were going to have to vacate a road that was owned by the homeowners association. We're going to have to use eminent domain to do that because they were not going to sell it to us. They had said they were going to sue us to prevent the development and sue us over the eminent domain. So that, I explained all those facts. So, that is part of the reason that, we looked at alternative sites and we found out this kind of very seldom used statute to do a swap. I will say though that since we announced this swap and have been working through the process in a pre-app, because we haven't put in the formal application yet, that's not going to happen until likely June because we have to go to the county and we have to get them to sign off. Scott's preliminary conversations with them have been very positive. We have to get city council to sign off too. But since we announced that swap, potential swap, because it hasn't happened, I now have heard from Metro's land use lawyer that they are looking to use the same statutory scheme to do a swap for some of the land from Eastern Damascus into land adjacent to Tigard. So we're early, seems like we might be an early adopter of the system, but other people are paying attention and they're looking to perhaps use it as well. So that is, I think, all I've got, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Watts from the council? Thank you very much.
Oh, Peter, I did one issue that seems to have come up on social media very recently is the fact that the Highlands site is AR, so it has some agricultural, and I'm not sure if Scotch broom is a valuable agricultural product, but does the agricultural piece of that have any impact on the application process?
They had done a pre-application with the county. Their plan was for a 21 lot subdivision, 20,000 square foot houses or housing lots, because that, due to their density bonuses, that's what they were entitled to. So what we're really talking about is lots that were going to be about half an acre are now going to be about a quarter of an acre, a little less than a quarter of an acre. And that is going to reduce the cost per lot of providing water, because there aren't going to be double the connections, but they're going to be more connections, so fewer feet between each connection. Hopefully smaller lots equal a less expensive final product because, you know, usually large lots equal more expensive. And we, again, get to loop our water, adding redundancy to our system. So I've gotten a lot of emails on signs, and I've gotten a lot of stuff on this. And as I told, you know, I've been getting a little, you know, less patient than maybe I have traditionally been. And as I told a lawyer, I was like, you know, I wasn't expecting him to name the park after me or something, but I really thought like saving $3 million and getting like more housing and getting a free park would be something that people would be like, hey, good job, city attorney. And I would have been like completely wrong in thinking that, because it turns out people aren't like, good job. They're like, you should have gotten more lots. And I'm like, do you actually think a city should develop residential units, or that we have the staff time or capability to do that? And they're like, that's a bad site. And I'm like, it's actually higher and on a more stable dune than the other site. And, you know, it just doesn't matter at the end of the day. These are all well-established facts. And yeah, you know, it is what it is.
Thank you, Peter. Good job.
Okay, and city administrator report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So just to tag on to that, I was just notified this afternoon that it looks like one of our first meetings with Clatsop County Planning Commission is June 10th. So that is rolling along. So we'll be meeting with them with Ken Schunkweiler and probably Peter and Carol. But that's all that I know about that particular feature right now. So things are moving forward. Just a few of the updates that I have on this page. I'd like to thank Justine for putting together that budget meeting. I think this is going to be really good for us moving forward and to help people understand that. So she did a really nice job with that, among a lot of other things as well. Talk about, we had the F Street water main break. That turned out to be a much bigger deal than what we thought it was. It turns out that what is in the ground was not what was designed and put as an as-built. So when we finally opened everything up, we had a whole different situation than we expected. So it took us a little bit longer because we needed some specialized parts. But they made the connection, they got everything fixed up with very little or no damage. And it's an improvement on our system as well. So the public works staff did great. They worked throughout the night to do that, and I was very proud of them. We're working on a water conservation plan. We're working on a water seismic risk management plan. We're working on the budget. We've got a lot going on at the moment here at City Hall that we seem to be maintaining pretty well. We do have the budget meetings tomorrow night at 5 p.m. and then a potential secondary meeting on Friday at the same time, if it's needed. Playground equipment was delivered. We have received that and it came safe and sound, and we're working on the bids for doing some of the concrete work over there, and we'll go through that process. But I hope we can begin doing the install by the middle of June, probably at the latest, and then have that done fairly quickly.
Now, will we need a special meeting to approve any of this work?
Potentially, if there is, depends on what the costs that come out in. And there has been some people that are interested in doing some work for the city. Potentially no cost, but we're working that out now. And we will do that at the June meeting if we need.
Okay.
Okay.
June meeting.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Emergency cash station, let's see here. We did during one of the interesting things that we did during the water main break is that the city opened up its emergency operations center. We figured no big problem should go without helping us develop our processes that we have here. So we opened up that emergency operations center, brought some people in a little bit early. Made sure that the communication, made sure the fire department was aware and they were helping out. Public Works had what they need, the police department, making sure traffic was all right. And it was a really good effort by the crew to try to practice that. So I was also very happy with that.
You can read your notes underneath there.
Yeah, there was some funny things that we did in there to have a good time, such as security and riot control. We put Jeff Bowman in charge of that. We did not have any riots. We've got the work session coming up on May 31st and the 4th of July, of course, on July 4th, the fire department will be working with that parade. And then we have a street dance Friday, July 1st at 7 p.m. So save that date. And that's all that I have for now. Unless you have any questions.
Any questions, Chad?
We don't know what the work session for May 31st is yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be reviewed.
City administrator review. Okay.
After
I
that,
think
and
it's the 29th, isn't
that's it, 31.
it?
Says 31 on the paper.
Yeah, let me just.
I could be wrong.
May 31 is the fifth Tuesday.
Okay.
That's-
Okay, and moving on to correspondence, we just had one piece in our packet, which was the LCDC land use legislation report. If anybody wants to review that report, Chad, can they just send you an email? You can send it because it wasn't sent to us electronically, I don't think.
Yes.
Right.
Which isn't.
And then there is one on the backside, with regard to, just, some speed control on Gerhart Loop, and I noticed that the speed monitor has been placed there. Is that in response to this?
Partially, yeah. We had a couple of people that were concerned. Jeff Bowman took some comments on that, so we put the speed trailer out to both help with the speed limit and to monitor what's going on to see if we need enhanced patrols or what have you. But yes,
Yeah, it'd be great to get some report on that next month.
yes. I was figuring on keeping it out there for about a month to get that information, and then I'll bring that along next month as well. There was one other piece of correspondence that came in late that I'm just seeing now as I was in meetings from Bob Mooring. We'll forward that out. It's quite long right now, but I think that went out to you counselors as well, so you'll have it.
Okay, and then two more that were on our desks. One from Jeannie Mark with regard to the new playground, and she was considering some signage of drive slowly here on Pacific Way. And I know I sent something back, and I'm not too familiar with all the conditions that the planning commission did for the conditional use permit, but I believe it at least had something about crosswalk over this direction.
Yeah, as a potential for that, not required, but we'll definitely look at the situation. We currently have the one crosswalk that's just right up over here, and I think that enhancing that in the future would be prudent.
A question about, I just noticed that there's a Counselor Thompson at citybureau.com email like this. How do I access that?
Yeah, I emailed you a couple times on that.
Oh, okay.
But not at that address, so we can talk about it. We've got it
Okay.
set up, so yeah. We just got that going not so long ago.
I just,
Yeah, sure, there's some interesting things in there.
I bet there is.
And then I do want to point out that we did get a resignation from the Planning Commission by David Smith, and that a copy of that is in your packet as well. We will put an appointment for a new planning commissioner on the June agenda. And we have 4 applications. I reviewed them this afternoon again, and I think there is a good candidate who was actually my number 2 pick from last month or 2 months ago. So I hope that we can just move forward with those applications that we have in file.
I would like to say thank you to David Smith because he served a long time on the planning commission and has been a great asset for them. And I'm sorry to see him leave, but I understand life is what it is.
Yeah, David was a good guy. Really enjoyed
Yeah.
working with him on the planning commission.
Yeah, me
He's
too.
done a fantastic job.
Well, we will wish him well. And next is our visitors section. I know we have Ken Schonkweiler from ODOT who wants to talk. So I think let's lead off with Ken. And then we'll do checking to see if anybody else would like to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. And also thanks to you, Chad, for organizing this. Again, my name is Ken Schunkweiler. I live in Astoria, Oregon, and I'm one of the project managers that is working on the US 101 Gerhardt facility plan. Last time I think we spoke to all of you, I believe it was October, November of last year. And so we were talking a little bit about the 2 alternatives that we had right before our public involvement event. There weren't tons of huge differences between the 2 alternatives. They're mostly regarding pedestrian and bicycle facilities on the northern part and the southern part of the city. We got a ton of great feedback in that public involvement over the winter. We had 95 written comments and over 400 clicks on Nextdoor, which is an app that we use to promote our online open house, which frankly is awesome. We normally don't get that much attention from a lot of our projects. And so kudos to the city for helping us to promote that. So based on the feedback from that public involvement meeting, the feedback from the council, and then our information from our stakeholder advisory committee that we had, we've more or less narrowed it down to 1 preferred alternative. Again, so that's more of a 3-lane cross section throughout the majority of the city with the center turn lane. Within the downtown core, we have a more sidewalk oriented cross section with a buffer strip and numerous ped crossings to help the city get from point A to point B across the corridor. And then farther north and south on the corridor, we heard a lot of feedback from the community about having maybe a little bit more of a rural nature preferred alternative. So just, a simple walking path, which for us is considerably cheaper to have on the highway. And then again, just addressing a lot of the issues that we have with flooding in the corridor as we develop that preferred cross section into a construction project, hopefully in the future. We still ended up considering the roundabout at Gerhardt Lane as more of an aspirational project in the plan for 2 reasons. A roundabout proposal at Gerhardt Lane is a pretty expensive endeavor, and frankly, we don't have a ton of good ways to fund it right now. It's not that we couldn't in the future. And we also recognize the fact that there's a lot of delay at Gerhardt Lane, right? I know the city had provided some traffic counts from the summertime of vehicles trying to enter and exit that. We do hope that that 3-lane cross section with the center turn lane actually would help slow down cars and let vehicles exit Gerhardt Lane onto US 101 in an easier fashion, specifically with the ability to make a left-hand turn. But for that long term, we heard a lot of just positive feedback for a roundabout concept as well too. So we decided that it's more of an aspirational plan. Our next steps with the project. So we're going to take basically what we've narrowed down as that preferred alternative and do 1 last public involvement event. Hopefully check in again with the city after that and kind of do a more formal presentation. Hopefully I can get a screen share option and just run it through everybody. Hope to get a public letter of support from the council, and then we go and adopt that plan and start working on some funding alternatives to try to get some of that infrastructure identified in the plan built on the ground in Gearhart. That is the high level of where we're at on that project, and I would just pass it back to the council and just ask if there's any questions.
Ken, I've got
Go
one.
ahead.
The aspirational roundabout. So how much would such a roundabout cost?
Yeah, so roundabouts typically, because of the right of way, a lot of the, utility relocation in the corridor. These range anywhere from a smaller roundabout in that 2 million price range to a $5 million roundabout that we typically have in our STIP.
Wow. Okay. 2 to 5 million.
Yeah, not a super easy thing to get on the ground, nor is it quick. There's a ton of safety benefits, right? So, at that intersection, it doesn't meet signal warrants, which basically means that we cannot legally install a traffic signal. And frankly, there's a lot of positive benefits from a roundabout anyways. Traffic signals are pretty comparative in costs and frankly, don't have some of the safety benefits that a roundabout does. A roundabout eliminates over 60 potential conflicts at an intersection, but it also introduces 4 new ones. So that's the entering and exiting of the roundabout. So that's kind of where we're at with that at Gearhart Lane. It's an expensive piece of infrastructure that, we probably would have a hard time funding in a lot of our programs, but we want to keep it on the books.
Okay, thank you very much.
What fiscal year, Ken, would you think that you might be trying to get funding?
Yeah, so I think I had mentioned to the council last time, so we have to, and you probably know this, replace the signal at Pacific Way in US 101 in that 24-27 time period. So that's 1 4-year cycle of our statewide transportation improvement program. The great news about that is that opens up the door for us to try to leverage on some other funding as we can find it, maybe possibly through the infrastructure grant options that came out through the administration, or even some other funding sources. But most likely it's a lot of grant writing in my book to kind of do and figure out. And so sometime, we're hopeful to start tacking on infrastructure items after or during that 24-27 time period. That's kind of like where we can really start to get some things on the ground.
Thank you.
I've got one more quick question from mine. Ken, I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but that traffic warrant issue was kind of curious to me in regards to Gearhart Lane and how that comes about, just the short version. But is that also the same type of situation at Highlands Lane in regards to a future light at that one as well?
Yeah, so we and not putting me on the spot at all. Thanks, Chad. That's a great question. So it is, traffic signal warrants are intentionally hard to meet because it is a piece of infrastructure that by law not only costs a lot of money, but can cause numerous issues on the system. And so typically at a 3-legged intersection, like at Gearhart Lane, it's pretty difficult to either make the turning movements numbers that are required in it, look at any of the other generators for delay as far as Gearhart Lane is concerned. And Highlands Lane is very much in the same scenario, right? 3-legged intersections are very difficult. And at Highlands Lane, we just simply don't have the turning movements.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
Thank you very much, Ken. And Christy, is there anyone who has their hand up on the Zoom?
There's not, but there are 3 callers and I muted all the phones. So let me please undo that so that they can have a chance. Oh, wait, I think they actually have to unmute. Hold on just a second. Let's see.
While she's looking, do you have any emails that you got?
No, Madam Mayor, no emails.
Christie, are you still checking then?
Oh, I do see a hand up from an S. McKenna.
Okay, I want to recognize S. McKenna for your 5-minute visitor section. And please start out with your name and address.
Hi there, it was Shannon Smith, but McKenna is my middle name, so that's me. I'm at 774 Pacific Way, Gearhart 97138. I was connecting in. I'm the owner of the Gearhart Park Hotel Livery Stable, the barn, and I was queuing into what Chief Bowman may be looking at with traffic recently. I, of course, am right along Pacific Way, where the one traffic speed monitor is, and over the last particular year, 6 months, I've noticed that cars are actually going faster in this particular section, almost sometimes to race the speed monitor, and it's kind of funny in an awful way. But anyway, the speed along here seems to be increasing, was my first indicator I wanted to let you know about. And then secondly, I walk the beach pretty much every other day, and it just seems like there's so much more traffic now going south from the condo entrance onto the beach where no cars are allowed, including at least 3 times in the last month where it looks like tire tracks actually tried to go up the pathway that leads to Pacific Way from the beach, and then got partway through the dunes and then backed out. So I've noticed it, and I thought I'd at least bring it to your attention, since you may be looking at other parts of the city that are being, going faster or kind of not abiding by the traffic signs.
Thank you very much. Is that all?
My second question, or kind of 2 things I wanted to indicate, was one, I was recently in conversation with some of the USDA folks about rural development grants. I'm applying for one for the barn property here to do some both restoration work, etc. And in conversation with them, it was brought to my attention that there is some infrastructure money for things like fire stations. And I was able to talk to a guy at FEMA in Seattle, who's named Richard Dunn. He's actually been to Gearhart several times with his wife, knows all about our elk, etc. Anyway, apparently Kodiak, Alaska has got a $7 million grant from the recent infrastructure bill for their fire station, and something similar to what we're developing. So I just thought I'd offer his name and contact info if you were interested. Plus, the USDA grants have a lot of interesting aspects to them for communities of our size and in our area for supportive services that might be helpful in the future. So I just want to offer that as something I've been able to connect with and thought it might be something of interest to the city. I wasn't aware of if anybody had applied for grants that might be in association with what we want with the fire station for the future, or for the new facilities that we're planning. So that was my question, and also my things I thought I'd offer.
Thank you very much. I will send her back an email and just let her know that we've talked with the USDA, the Oregon office of the USDA about the fire station, and that part of what we're restricted from is our average mean income is quite high. And so that restricts anything that we may be able to get from them, but to, I think, 15% about. So I'll send her an email on that.
Thank you.
And any other hands up or people on telephones who would like to speak?
The
Yes,
phone
I would.
ending, yeah, phone ending in 255 has unmuted. The other caller hung up and one is still muted, so I'm taking that as a, they do not wish to speak.
Okay, go ahead, caller. Just give us your name and address, please.
All right, Jack Zimmerman, 408 West Kershal, Gerhart. I have a question for Chad and then a question for Peter, if that's all right. Chad, you were kind enough to acknowledge our public records request on various water data requests. And on our form, we asked for a in-house review rather than written documentation because of the extensive nature of it. Is there a problem with us or me coming in and reviewing some of the things that you sent me? Especially the water agreement between Warrenton and the city of Gerhart.
Mind if I answer, Madam Mayor? I didn't see the request for the water agreement. We do have that and we can get that to you. The other items are all digital. And so there would be a cost if we were to print them out and make them available to you. We can do that if you like. But otherwise we wouldn't have any issue with you reviewing the documents that we have.
Okay, so the water purchase agreement, I could come in and make an appointment with you to review it without a problem.
No, that wouldn't be a problem at all.
And then also from the nature of the questions of the, I don't know if he's an engineer or whoever your consulting firm was that you sent. I'm wondering, is there a problem with me contacting him directly to clarify a few things?
No, I don't think that would be appropriate because the fees would go to the city for his time. But if you forward me questions that you have for clarification, I'll get you the information that you request.
So he won't charge you if you do it, but he'll charge you if I do it. Is that correct?
Not necessarily, but this way the city is in control of the time. And that way we can make sure we may have some of the data that you need and we wouldn't have to use the Chris Hyatt with our water modeler.
Okay. That
So
seems
just send me your
reasonable.
request.
Okay, thank you. Peter, can you tell me what the status is? And I've asked various people this question within the city, what the status is of the Olsted's subdivision with the county. And rather than baiting you, we understand that is not and does not have final plat approval. Is that yours?
So when we became aware of the potential because of the land that is west of the no build line, I got in touch with the planner for the Olsted parcel. At that point, they decided to not ask the county for the plat approval and instead go through with the city because they would be able to get, I think, about 1.5 times the number of lots that they were going to get at in the county. So yeah, that's true. They didn't go through the county to get platted and then go through the city. They did the pre-app conference with the county to go through what was possible and then abandon that process for this city process.
And they abandoned it for what purpose? Was that the problem with water connection with Warrenton?
No, because they did not want to incur the costs associated with going through the full county process when they intended to, if the UGB swap happened, go through the city process.
Well, my understanding is they were in this pre-application with the county over a year ago.
Right, and then they
You're-
withdrew
you're-
from that process because they wanted to annex into the city and get the additional lots.
Okay, all right,
It's,
so then.
it's very
I-
expensive to go through a subdivision land use, full
Oh,
subdivision
I'm,
land use approval, so
I'm very,
it
I'm
wouldn't
very
make
aware
sense
of
for them
that.
to do a parallel path.
Yeah, I understand. Well, the reason I ask that is that we've heard so much about how they have been trying to find the necessary fulfillment of conditions, and that this preceded any contemplation of a swap transaction with the city. So I
Right,
must say,
so
I'm
before they
I'm
contemplated the swap with the city, the city had to make a determination whether we would serve them with city water or not. That was the letter that Chad sent out, I believe, in Chad, was it 2019 or was it 2020? That this pandemic's made all these dates bleed together.
I don't recall, it may have been 19 or early 20, not sure.
Yeah, I think it was fall of 20, but I'm not 100%.
yeah, I think that, I think that's our timing too.
Yeah.
How's our time check going here?
The time is over.
All right.
Boy, I'm getting used to this, so, okay, I wasn't finished, but thanks a lot.
Thank you. Anyone here in the audience who would like to speak? Do we have any other visitors?
I don't see any on the screen, no, and I'll double check the email. No,
There are
ma'am.
none on the screen.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you very much to our visitors and thank you for keeping to our times.
Oh, could I say something? Because somebody said a not very nice missive about me earlier today. My last name is Watts with an S, not Watt. I'm not on social media, but I've had several people forward it to me.
Okay, thank you. And next section is ordinances and resolutions. We have ordinance 932, the adoption of the City of Gerhart Parks Master Plan. And there is a staff report. Well, Chad, do you want to just give us the synopsis here real quick?
Certainly, Madam Mayor and Council. So this is ordinance resolutions 932, adoption of the City of Gerhart Parks Master Plan. The synopsis is after development through the Park Citizen Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission, the City Council has reviewed and edited multiple drafts of the proposed Gerhart Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Multiple public hearings also occurred where public testimony was received and considered. At the April council meeting, a motion to approve the attached ordinance was approved and it was read once by title only. A second reading tonight would be the ordinance, and the ordinance would take effect in 30 days from today if the council so chooses to do so. Your options are to approve 932 or again make some changes and motion to approve as amended. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I do want to point out that Carol Connell is not here tonight. I did have a meeting with her earlier on this afternoon, and I just want to walk you through a couple of things, starting with the staff report. So what was updated on this was the correspondence on the page 1. So the public testimony that is got more names on it than the last draft you saw. And then if you go back to the ordinance, which is the last 2 pages, there's a cross out there, which was the segment of the Oregon Coast Trail having to do with the ridge path. This is an amendment in the comprehensive plan. It was something that Carol Lucas had requested during the hearing area or the subsequent meeting. So we're taking out the line that it's part of the Oregon Coast Trail because it is no longer that. Moving on to the next page on item B, that is a new section per Carrie Smith's request, and that is to amend the beaches and dunes section on mowing to match what is going to be in here, which is mowing of the dunes shall occur from August 1st through January 31st. I believe those were the two things. The other things down here are all cross-referencing to the transportation system plan. And in the subdivisions and the land partition ordinance. The other thing that I want to point out that she mentioned is on page 17 of the actual plan. And I believe in the version, and if somebody else remembers this better than me, but she wanted to make sure that we knew that this was still highlighted and the numbers have changed.
Page 17.
It's page 17 in the new one, but I'm trying to find it in the old. So we had actually asked for that to be deleted. So I think she thought about that again, and she is just concerned about not having that aspirational goal of a park on the east side, specifically, as well as the north part of Gerhardt.
I also think there was some confusion about where she had it originally and where it was placed. And I think we asked her to kind of try to fit it in the best place that it was. And this looks good to me, so.
Looks better to you, yeah. And the only other thing that I kind of was concerned about is on the bottom of page 16 and also on 17, is the lots are named by the owners, so there's striped property on page 16. It's the next to the last line. And then the Palmer Pond, which I guess is what it's called. I didn't know that myself. Palmer Pond. And I just wonder, I mean, do we put quotes in that, or do you just call it that? Or, I mean, 20 years from now, will people know what we're talking about?
I can't answer to that.
Well, every name of something starts somewhere. I think when they named Gerhardt, nobody said it 20 years, it's still gonna be Gerhardt.
Okay.
I mean,
I did
Palmer's Pond.
I did talk to Carol about this. She brought it up and she said that, you know, the plan of course can be changed when the names of these particular areas are changed. But that these were the best ways to reference where they were at for right now.
I think that's fine.
As long as we don't forget.
Yeah.
Unless we want to use parcel numbers.
She felt, she mentioned that though, and she said that then people don't know what you're talking
That's true.
about.
It's to look it up.
Yeah. So, on that note,
I have one correction.
yes,
Page 42, number 1 in the appendix. It says Gerhardt's population is projected to grow from 1483 in 2018 to 1699 in 2038. And I think that's a misstroke. Because it should be 22 or 24, I don't know. But I think we're already at 1699.
I think we're at 1875.
Well, there you go. See, it's way out of line.
We talked about that, and when the official numbers actually come out, we'll be able to update those as well.
Yeah.
So we were just holding off until that happened.
Oh, that's why you left it in there, so it would give me something to catch.
What official numbers are we talking about?
Census and the way that they're presented, it's something to do with PSU. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but that was our concern. Was just that we didn't have everything we needed to update this correctly. And I can't speak to what exactly that is right now.
Okay. I know we had that discussion about using the census data, which makes more sense than the PSU data to me, but I believe we were assured though that if we go for a grant, we will use real life, real data.
Good.
I had another correction that is kind of just because it's a vague statement on page 18. Number C. In parentheses, we have it measured horizontally from ordinary high water line in accordance with AQ zone standards as determined by a biologist. A biologist is kind of a vague term in this sense of determining this line. So I was hoping we might want to make it more appropriate for to say a licensed environmental consultant and or with the approval of an appropriate state agency, which is they're the ones that oversee that setback. So
Which one do you recommend?
well, we could, you know, in technicality, usually you hire a consultant to determine that line and the state agency approves it. So we could have, just bypass that by having the state agency approve it. So.
Yep, that
So-
sounds good.
As determined by state agency approval?
By the appropriate state agency. That's all.
Okay. Any other corrections or changes? Would someone like to, and so Carrie, I don't think we're gonna change that,
That's
even
not
though we
gonna-
know that it's
it's not
not
gonna hurt.
correct. Okay. Okay. Is anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the draft as amended and adopted the ordinance with a second title only reading.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Hooray.
Congratulations, Millie.
And Madam Mayor, would you like to read,
Please.
read that? So this is
Yes.
ordinance 932, an ordinance adopting the Deerhart Parks and Recreation Master Plan and amending the City of Deerhart Comprehensive Plan zoning and subdivision ordinances to implement the PRMP.
Okay.
And I think a lot of you, all of you did really a lot of work on this, and I just want to say thank you. It's been a long and arduous process, but thank you to everyone who worked on it.
Pass that along.
Thank you.
Okay, and old business, we have none on our agenda. And then new business, we have budget committee appointments. And those applications are in your packet. We had two applicants pull their application, and that was Mr. Bob Shortman and Mr. Jack Zimmerman. So that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we have 5 positions available. Chad, according to your synopsis and your council option, you want us to vote on these one at a time, is that how you're reading that?
You can do it that way, but if you wanted to make a motion with the council that it be 5 specifics, I think that would be okay as well.
Is it possible more than that, 6?
I think this is by our ordinance that it's 5. It's supposed to be 5 counselors and 5 people from the community.
Yeah, it's pretty ordinance. That is correct.
Yeah.
So is it possible to hear from our 2 applicants that are here for just maybe a minute or 2 each?
And as far as I can tell, also Mr. Halpern is also online.
Okay, because I was thinking,
So is Mr. Iverson.
Oh, and Mr. Charles Iverson.
okay, because if they take the time to be here, I think it's only fair that we let hear from them.
I think that's a great idea. Kurt, do you want to say a few words?
Hello, my name's Kurt Penrod. I'm a newer resident to Gerhard. And I've been involved in a number of governmental organizations and then also political work that I've done both when we lived in Illinois and when I was in the Portland area. I think you can see by some of my experience, some of that was because I was an employee. I am an employee of State Farm. And I was involved in a lot of our community outreach. And so we worked on a lot of a variety of loss mitigation things and also worked with Portland Department of Transportation on some safety initiatives that we had. Anyway, just looking to get a little bit more involved in my community. And so this interests me to be part of this. And I've attended a number of your meetings before and expressed my interest in the Planning Commission and previous thing. But I was not selected, but thought I would come back into this and try to find another way to become involved.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor,
Yes. I was bored. You know, really and truly, being in 2016 is when my tenure ended as mayor. And between then and now, I was bored in the House and the whole bit, and I just wanted to get back into it again, into involvement with the city and whatever. I mean, you know, pretty much all of you know what I've been through with my days as mayor. Which, you know, and what we've done and everything, and, you know, I'm looking forward to being a part of this. Even though my husband suggested that you don't want to do that. And I said, oh, yes, I do. No, you don't. Yes, I do. I said, that's it. Good night. I'm going out, you know, and to discuss it, but, you know. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of this again. And I pretty much know everybody. And Austin, we spoke last month at the meeting a little for a couple of days and all. And I know your mother and yeah. So great. I'm looking forward. You know, if you want to have me, I would love to have it. I'd love to be on the budget committee.
great, great. Mr. Iverson.
I'm in person and online. I was over at fire drill. I'm Charles Iverson, volunteer here at fire for the past 18, almost 19 years. I just wanted to get more involved in the city since I've moved closer into city limits. I just want to get into the process of seeing the inner workings more closely since we do get funded by the city. So we're in the line item. So I get a little bit more involved in it, see where the money goes and where the money gets spent and
Right.
keep everything going.
Thank you. And Mr. Halpern? You want to say a few words?
Well, if you want me to, I was just present at the meeting waiting to hear what the results of the selection process were. I didn't really have anything planned or prepared, but I have the time to contribute to the city, and I thought I had skills that probably would be applicable in terms of organization and thoughtfulness, and having run a small business myself for almost 30 years. And I'd be happy to serve if I'm one of the ones selected.
Thank you very much. I do want to point out on Matthew Johnson's application, he does state that he's very okay and will not be hurt in any way if he is not chosen this time. He will continue to look at ways to volunteer if that should happen.
And Sharon's also current planning commissioner.
She is. Is there a motion?
Do you want us to nominate? Or do you want us to say, take these 5? I move the 5 that you choose are okay.
I'm going to recommend. I will make a motion. We'll get through this. I'll make a motion that we appoint Eric Halpern, Charles Iverson, Sharon Cloffer, Kurt Penrod, and Diane Whitta.
I second.
Any further discussion?
Well, I enjoyed all of the candidates, but I like what Matthew Johnson had to say, so I'll just say, I'm not averse to having him included, but your choices, Mayor. You're it.
Reflect previous comments to it. Sharon's on the planning commission currently, and Matthew's just trying to get a way to help out the city, so give him a chance to.
Yes, so my 5 choices would be Iverson, Johnson, Cleffer, Penrod, and Whitta.
We have a motion and a second.
Go ahead.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And just to be clear, the motion was from Councilor.
Mayor
Okay, Mayor Cobb, thank you.
Yes. Congratulations. Congratulations to you all. And council concerns. Austin.
Concerns for me. So it looks great.
Carrie.
I'm not concerned.
Brent.
No concerns other than ongoing Facebook concerns, but we're not going to cure that tonight.
Just stay off it.
I'm going to stay off after May 18th.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
So sad.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Council.
Oh, I mean, just the fact that you showed up here.
I will send,
I want to give you guys a packet.
I'm gonna send Matt